As many of you would be aware, Rear Admiral Peter Briggs and the team at Find AE1 have been the driving force behind this search for Australia's first submarine. Since the discovery of AE1 in December, Peter Briggs and the many partners in the search, including the Museum, the Silent World Foundation, the Royal Australian Navy, and the Submarine Institute of Australia, have been analysing the images collected in December to piece together what they may believe happened to AE1, and indeed what they believe may have caused its loss. So to tell that story this evening, it's my great honour to welcome Rear Admiral Peter Briggs to the stage to share with us his findings. Peter.
This evening I'd wish to thank those who made all this possible, recognise those who preceded us in searching, and briefly to report back on what we think happened from our analysis of the images. We'll also suggest the next step to better understand. Firstly, the Royal Australian Navy and the Federal Government. Minister, Chief of Navy, thank you. Half the cost of the search were borne by the RAN, and we appreciate their contribution. The Australian National Museum Foundation, the fundraising arm of the museum, working with Silent World Foundation, have almost raised the other half. Thank you. The Submarine Institute of Australia, good on. A long-term supporter, stepped in at the last moment when we had to find some funds to cover GST costs, etc., and loaned us the funds to keep the show on the road at very short notice to meet the deadline. The Australian National Maritime Museum has been a steadfast supporter and niche funder through the process. A 6-year journey. I wish to recognise those who supported us through that process and got us to the starting line against the odds. Firstly, the Papua New Guinea government. Ministers, it's really delightful, marvellous to have you here tonight to say thank you. Your support through the whole process has been tremendous. It hasn't finished yet, as you'll get at the final point. And it's very nice to have Mr. Julius Valaris from the National Museum and Art Gallery with us as well, who played a role in issuing the permits to let us undertake the search. John Mullen, whose personal guarantee at a critical moment let us proceed. It wouldn't have happened without him committing that obligation. That let us meet the tight timescales to take advantage of Fugro Equator, the vessel, and the marvellous autonomous underwater vessel that came with her that found the submarine. Find AE1 board are volunteers, and they continue to provide wise counsel, keep the tempestuous submariners under control. There's a large team of volunteers behind Find AE1. Many of them are world-class experts in their field, and they have given freely to make this possible. IXBlue, an earlier supporter who put together the survey plans and allowed us to submit the first proposal for funding, and did that in a pro bono fashion. They weren't there at the end because of Fugro's role, but we wouldn't have got there without IXBlue. Fugro sharpened their pencil to meet a cost cap. That was a generous step to take, but they then took on further risk that the search would become prolonged through either miscalculation of the task or weather or gear. Fugro accepted all those risks. They provided a highly capable and professional team operating modern survey equipment and delivered an excellent result. Finally, the descendants. you've been an inspiration through the whole 6 years. You've been with us and you've never given up hope. It's marvellous to have John Foster's son and daughter here tonight. The end of a chapter, so really nice that you can be with us. The Royal Australian Navy over the years has put in several efforts to try and find searches to try and find AE1, and their efforts should be recognised. It's nice to have, I think the commanding officer of Yarra that did the search in September 2014 is here. Well done, the man in uniform there. And we've also got Dan Fitzhenry, Captain Dan Fitzhenry, who went up in January following that search to check out the contact. It was 54 metres long, but it was a 54-metre line of boulders, and it wasn't AE1. And finally, the National Maritime Foundation, who have supported our efforts. The search area was defined, set down really after we'd done the initial search and cleared in November 2015. We cleared the water down to 200 metres. The submarine was not there. The technology was good enough to find it. The submarine was not there. Our analysis that they had a grounding and sunk was wrong. If that had happened, we would have found it. We went back to the drawing boards, went back to all the original records, and we found another hour in the life of AE1. We found a refined last known position up on the star in the area there. That was started off as a report in Parramatta's beautiful copperplate initial report. When you think about it, though, it was a rendezvous. It was where Parramatta and AE1 agreed to meet on the day. Rendezvous don't happen anywhere in the ocean. When you pick a rendezvous, you pick a precise latitude and longitude. And when you do that in this, you move it a little bit closer to Rabaul, and the combination of the extra hour and the moved last known position give AE1 enough time to do a practice dive. And that became our favoured scenario. That influenced the search area. The Defence Science Technology Group took that into their mathematical laboratories and did a probability analysis and set out the probability of where we might find it, and that was used to define the search area, which has been done by IX Blue, that drawn up this diagram. The original plan was for a 30-day towed sonar and magnetometer search. I have to say, having looked at the topography of that bottom, we would have had a mighty battle for 30 days. It would have been a challenge. That plan was overtaken. That was what was approved by the government, and with rather more funding. That plan was overtaken by the offer from Fugro. They had a ship available, had the right technology and the right team on board to make it work. And the rest, as they say, is history. We found AE1 on the first AUV mission, lying in Area A in a depth of water deeper than 300 metres. Not very far from where we expected. The technology that made the breakthrough is this autonomous underwater vehicle, the big orange torpedo. Carries sonars that look out either side, a sonar that looks down underneath it, a third sonar that determines the depth of the sediment and looks for objects in the sediment. Whole lot come together with precise navigational accuracy, so whatever it finds on the bottom, you know within a metre where it is. Extraordinary technology. You've seen the departure rather more dramatically in the video. That was the real departure. We didn't stage that in the dark for the first successful mission. 21:20 on the 19th, on my cabin door, and it's the survey chief saying, "You'd better come and have a look at this." Lots of excitement, as you saw in the video in the analysis room. The image on the left is from the ship's big multi-beam echo sounder, and the one on the right is that initial image that came back from the side-scan sonar in the autonomous underwater vehicle. The groove stretching vertically, and you can see there in the shadow, is a processing artefact. There is no groove on the bottom, so the submarine didn't plough a furrow. It's, as you see in the left-hand diagram, the bottom is fairly flat. Lucky? Yes, we were lucky, but we were looking in the right place with the right gear and the right team. We made a bit of that luck ourselves. From the stills and the videos taken on the subsequent drop camera exercise and the AUV overflight, so it went back for a second look, taking a series of black and white photographs, we've been able to conduct a detailed analysis of the wreck, which reveal a number of principal features. Firstly, there's absolutely no doubt this is AE1. Secondly, there's very little crush damage to the bow. It didn't hit bow first. Forward plane guards on the seabed, planes set to hard to rise, we would say. Major implosion over the, oops, you're getting, go back. The big diamond just after the foreplanes there is over the forward torpedo space, and the even bigger shape forward of the collapsed fin is over the control room where the pressure hull is imploded. The fin has been wrenched from its seat and toppled forward. The rectangular black hole back aft is the engine room hatch, which has been blown off. The after ends of the pressure hull remain largely intact, and the after plane guards are sitting on the seabed. You'll see some of these shots certainly in the report, but I thought I'd just quickly run through it. I hope it's going to stay with us, yes. You're looking at the bow with the hydroplanes, starboard and port labelled, the plane guards laying on the bottom. That big hand wheel was the first real indication we had. We saw that, we knew we were looking inside the pressure hull. There was none of those valves outside. We knew we were looking down into the inside of AE1. At the stern, quite dramatic pictures as well, both the after hydroplanes, the plane guards again laying on the bottom, pretty well in the right position, the stern torpedo tube, and both propellers in close-up details, both propellers are there. There's a blown up of the mosaic on the wall, and as I said in the report, there's a great deal further analysis. What happened to AE1? We've taken our analysis to a graphic artist in Melbourne, and what follows is best described as knowledgeable supposition, but it's passed the sanity check with the Defence Science Group and John Jeremy, an expert in submarine engineering and fixing them, who's with us here tonight. AE1 was dived. It could well have happened on diving, and that's some of the things we'll check when we go back to ascertain that. The planes are hard to rise, so in the case of the foreplanes, they're trying to lift the bow. In the case of the afterplanes, the same thing's happening, that the planes are trying to lift the bow up to recover. So it's sinking, it's heavy. They have only one propeller shaft available. The engine clutch on the starboard engine was jammed in, preventing it being used. They normally operating depth 30 metres. We estimate that the submarine will crush between 90 and 120 metres. So it's not a big margin in a 54-metre submarine. I think it could happen quite quickly. And that's exactly what happened. So the implosion in the forward torpedo compartment and the control room occurs pretty well simultaneously. That is like a truck bomb going off in the control room. It's a massive energy event. Instantaneous, huge pressure wave going through the submarine hull, and that's what blows the engine room hatch off, that pressure wave coming aft, and it kills the crew instantly. That overpressure is it's a bomb blast. That collapse of the pressure hull may well have started the process of the fin collapsing. Submarine struck the bottom, and if you can imagine, it's not by the bow, it's got a big keel underneath it, and it's the keel, the toe of the keel, that hits the bottom first. First impact. Second impact, the momentum carries it pivoting on the keel forward onto the bow, where it hits, second impact, and that's the whiplash that finishes off the fin. Maybe already unseated, but that final flick is what finishes off the fin. The third impact, the submarine settles back on its keel, huge damage to ballast tanks with the thump. Those plane guards fall off underneath their basic position. So that sequence explains what we're seeing in the wreck. What comes next? We would like to see a follow-up survey with remotely operated vehicles and precise cameras to collect a rather more refined image, and that will form the baseline for the management, the future management of the wreck. It will tell us an awful lot more about what happened to the submarine and provide the museum, both here and in Western Australia, with the much more graphic images to tell the story to future generations. It'll be non-intrusive, and ministers and the Papua New Guinea National Museum President, I'd like to think we'll have something on your desks quite soon to undertake this. Time will tell. And finally, we found the cartoon drawn by Mark Knight in the Herald Sun newspaper. This really resonated with us sitting at sea in the ship, feeling half happy and half sad at the successful result. Mark Knightley got it spot on. Thank you very much.